Welcome to InTech. My name's Luke, and today we're going to be talking about Azure DevOps. Specifically, we're going to be making a pipeline for Terraform code within Azure DevOps. Now, this is episode 1 of a 4-part series where in number 1 we'll be creating a basic pipeline. So if you just want to understand what is ADO, how the pipelines work, how can I do it with my Terraform code, that's one for you. Number 2 and 3, we start messing around with state in Terraform, specifically like the lock file. And number 3, we do validation, manual validation that is. And number 4, we create essentially a business ready, production ready, multi-environment pipeline. So number 1, basic is this, state and validation. So that's so that we can actually break this out into logical chunks. So for instance, your init, your plan, your apply. Validation, you're adding a step because say before your apply, you want someone to come and look at it and then decide whether that's a yes or a no. Don't want to automatically go through with the pipeline. And finally, number 4 is we're going to get this pipeline, and this is fine on your own machine, right? But you want to break this out such that then you would have, say, a dev pipeline, a test pipeline, and then a production pipeline. So if we go to ADO here, you'll see I've used it before, but if you've never used it before, you'll come up with this new organization stuff. So within ADO you can have multiple organizations, which is just a way to organize your projects. So just continue on that, and then we can name our organization. We'll call it InTech-Pipeline, and then make sure that I'm not a robot. And then this will create your organization, which by default will be a private organization. Because the code that we're going to use today I'm sharing with you, it is public on GitHub. So we will change that to public, and I'll show you how to do that. So you get met with this screen, project name. We'll call this project just the same, I think, InTech Pipeline project. There's my cat. Hi, cat. And as you can see, it's only allowing it to be private. So let's click Create Project, and this will create an Azure DevOps project within this organization. And here is the project. Welcome to the project. So this here is what you get with when you use Azure DevOps. You can use boards, repos, pipelines, test plans, and artifacts. You can see that it's down the left as well. Boards, repos, pipelines, test plans, and artifacts. And then there's also this overview section. Wiki, you will get used to this if you start using this like out in the real world, because wiki is where you keep your documentation. So like create a project wiki. Boards is where you have like your Kanban boards for Agile and Scrum, things like that. You create tickets, you can use tickets, maneuver them. So if you're working on a variety of projects, or if you're working really just for a company, you will be using a board, because normally they'll have like a Azure DevOps organization which covers loads of projects. So anyway, you'll have that there where you can follow all this stuff. Repos, it's essentially just GitHub but on Azure DevOps. Pipelines, what we're going to look at today, this is the pipelines for your code, and then you have environments in here as well, so you can have multiple environments as we've spoken about. Test plans, this is where you can create tests, run them, you can see them in an isolated manner. And then artifacts, these are the kind of things that are left over from a pipeline. So if you were to use a pipeline to create a Docker image, at the end that would be an artifact, a Docker image. We're going to use it in episode 2 to cover the Terraform state, so we can pass that between different jobs or stages within the pipeline. So now that you've seen this overview, let's click plus and we'll create a new pipeline up here. You could also just click that button in the middle here, but anyway, click new pipeline. Now it's going to ask where is your code. It supports Bitbucket, repos, GitHub, GitHub Enterprise. Else is just in GitHub. We'll click ADO pipelines. And then you'll see this error here. You selected a public repo, but this is not a public project. Go to project settings to change visibility. So if we go to project settings, you'll actually see that you can't change it here. So this, normally here it would say change it, but you can't because you actually have to configure your organization. So if we go up to this breadcrumb at the top, we go to the first stage, that's the organization. We'll go to organization settings. And then we go to policies. And here you can see security policies allow public projects. Put that on, click save. Then back up here, just go to the organization. Now here, this is the project. Let's just click here and it'll go straight to pipelines. But you can see we need to go to project settings now, and this visibility is here. We can change that to public, click save. Back to pipelines. Now we need to create the pipeline, do this bit again. So here you want to pick which repo has the code that you want to pull through the pipeline or put through the pipeline. Then configure, do you want a starter or do you want to use an existing? We're going to use an existing because it's already in the repo. And it's in the main branch. If we click on path, you can see it auto detects these Azure pipelines, which are just within an Azure pipelines directory. It's found them because they're called .yaml, which is the configuration language you use when you're creating pipelines. I'll show you in a moment. So we're going to go with basic, click continue, and then this is it here. Instead of reading it here, we can read it in VS Code since it'll be easier. But if you just go up to the top here, you can see there's a run button. We don't want to run it just yet. We just want to save it because there's a couple of things we need to do first. So let's save it. Create the pipeline. And there we go. This is now here. There's runs, branches, analytics. But on the left, if we click on pipelines, we'll see it pops up here. No runs yet. Here it would tell us the most recent run. So let's just click on it again. You can see up the top, edit or run. If we click on edit, we can then edit here. As you've seen, it was loading up GitHub. We can make edits here, and then if we save them, it commits the changes to the branch that we're on. So here it would just commit directly to main, which is not a good idea, but for personal projects, do what you want. So let's cover what's happening here before we have to go and do a couple other things. First thing first is a trigger. So this is to say, what do you want to trigger the pipeline? And here we want branches to trigger it, and we want the branches to include main. So whenever main gets a commit pushed to it, triggers this to go. So if we change this, and then we save it, which then commits the code, it will automatically then run this pipeline, which is pretty cool. Pool, this is the pool of resources that are used as agents. Also, this is the agent pool. What an agent is, if we go back to the drawing, you can see that there's this pipeline, right? Now this pipeline is just YAML code. So this code has to run somewhere. So it runs on an agent. These VMs, they come in two flavors. You get Microsoft managed and you get self-managed. Self-managed, it can be anything on the cloud, so you can just direct it to a cloud machine, or it can be local, on-prem, whatever it may be. Today we're going to use local, so we're going to install an agent on our local machine, which is then going to run the pipeline, which is pretty cool. You also get Microsoft managed, so this is automatically managed by Azure, so this just they create the VM or the VMs that you need, because if you think about it, if it's production or if it's a company, there could be loads of pipelines that are required to be run at the same time, or there could be massive pipelines, and so they may need multiple agents to be running to configure that properly. So in this way, they kind of auto scale it essentially for you, whereas here you're managing the pool yourself. The pool of resources just being the pool of the virtual machines, right? So for us, we're using default because we're going to we're going to create an agent, a local agent, and put it in this default pool. We'll get to that after we run through the code. Next up, variables. So you can specify some variables if they're going to be recurring. Here, the only one that does recur is Azure Service Connection. But I just pulled them out so you can get an understanding of what it does, how it works. So next up, after these variables are specified, we have stages. Now, I'll take you to the drawing board again. I'll explain a little bit about pipelines in ADO and how they're structured. So you can kind of see it from the arrows here. You can have a play around if you've cloned the repo, but otherwise let me have a quick draw here and show you. I zoomed in. Right, so here's your pipeline, right? Now your pipeline comes in multiple stages. So that's the first logical breakup of your pipeline. Comes in stages. And now each stage can have a number of jobs. So some might have 2 jobs, some might have 1, some might have, however many you want them to have, right? And now each of these jobs are made up of a number of steps. Let's write steps. So some of them could have one, some of them could have loads of steps, but you get the gist. So it breaks down into this kind of component of pipeline, stages, jobs, steps. And now steps, these can be made up of either tasks or scripts. A script, essentially, you can think of it like bash, so some CLI command like make a directory, move a file from here to here, that kind of thing. Whereas a task is like a layer above that where you can use an app, say. So you can actually download something from the ADO marketplace and that would then run as a task. So it's like pre-made kind of sets of this scripts you can imagine. So that being said, it's probably a good time to show you that. So on your VMs here, if this VM is to run a Terraform pipeline, it will have to have Terraform installed. Now it doesn't go looking on the rest, so say that's the agent, right, and this is your actual machine. The agent doesn't go looking, it's a self-contained piece, and so it has to install Terraform on its own. And to do that, it uses the ADO marketplace, which we'll get to in a minute, but I'll open up so we can remember it. ADO marketplace. I suppose let's just do it whilst we're here. ADO marketplace, you can see its extensions for Azure DevOps, and here we get Terraform. If we click on that, and then you can just get it free, and then here you can add it into your organization. So for us it will be this Intech pipeline. There we go. Now we don't want it for DevOps server, we're just using the DevOps org, and we'll install it, and it will just install it now automatically into your organization. So if we proceed to the organization, this is our organization. Now all the projects in here will have access to that Terraform. Now what that means is that if we go back to here, this is saved, so we can just refresh it. On the left, we have tasks. Now if we look at here, back at the drawing, you can see that tasks are part of steps, right? But these tasks, as I was saying, are like an abstraction above scripts. Now the task, you can run tasks from these marketplace packages, but they're also default packages. So all of these here are things that you can do in your pipeline automatically. So for instance, let's see, Terraform. You can also search up the top, but just to show you, if we wanted to add a Terraform task in here, you would just click here. So first of all, you'd want to find Terraform tool installer. So click add, and that will then install Terraform, or Terraform tool. And then, if you click on Terraform, you can see here now that for Azure RM, which is what we want to use because the resources that we're deploying in our Terraform code are in Azure, we'll click Azure. The command, let's say init validate plan blah blah blah. So the first one we'd want is an init. The configuration directory is just a default one because it would just be Terraform. And additional command arguments. This could be handy if on your apply you want to auto approve. You don't want the yes or no piece to come in. You can just have that in. So if we click add, and I suppose before we click add actually, because it is an init, we have to initialize backend service connection. So I'll go up and show, I'll just click add so you can see what pops up. So there you go, you can see it pops it up. But let's delete these and we'll go back to the top of the code because we've already written it. And if we go up here, we can see that our first stage, or our only stage actually in this one, is initialization. Now the reason that we only have one stage in our basic pipeline is because the Terraform state, although the state file is backed up in the cloud, the interaction between the agent and the state file to lock it and to manage that state, the files are within the agent, right? And it's within the working directory of the agent. But the problem is that the agent takes the stage, runs the stage, then when it moves on to the next stage, it now doesn't have access to that information. So when you initialize Terraform here, and then you were to then go into a plan stage, it doesn't know that an initialization has occurred. It just then doesn't know what to do. So when you're doing a basic one, you can just create everything in this one stage, but then when we break it up into logical stages, that's why in the next tutorial we'll look at using artifacts so that we can then upload the relevant Terraform directory, and then we can download it in the next stage so that we always have that Terraform state and locking mechanism sorted. So we just have one stage here, but we have a number of jobs. The first job we have is Terraform init. Now this Terraform init job has some steps. Steps include installing that Terraform, right, which you can remember is the same as the one that we found using this task here, because it is a task, it's not a script. And it does that with a specific input, which would be the Terraform version that you're after. And for us, we're just using 1.5.5. Now, the next task is this here, Terraform task v4 at 4. Now, that's what comes up if you were to use this here. So if you recall down the bottom, when we use that, it comes up with this Terraform task v4 at v4. And for us, we're setting up the back end. So one prerequisite here is that when you're running this code in GitHub, you'll see that I have a TF backends folder or directory. Now I have a previous video talking about how stuff like, we have one about Terraform backends, how to create a remote backend, and it gives you the code, the same way I have it here. You can check the video below if you want more detail on that. We also have one like what is Terraform, and another one about how to get started in Azure using Terraform. So if you're interested in that, links will be in the description. But for today, we have this module that we've created, a local module, which creates a remote backend. And then we have, if we come out, what layer? We have main, and this main creates a dev backend, a test backend, and a prod backend. So this is more relevant for the final one. You can just run the normal remote backend creation, and then if you follow my steps, it will give you an output. But if you don't follow my steps, then you'll need to go find the information yourself. The information that we need is the backend resource group, the backend storage account, the backend container, and the backend key. Now up here, I've written them out. Backend key and container for yours will probably be the same, but the resource group storage account will be unique. So another one that you'll see I've not talked about yet is the Azure Service Connection. Now, when we're setting up this backend, we need to connect to Azure to get it. So if we open up here, when we're setting up our Terraform backend, then the state file is in the cloud. Now, as I said, if you want more information on why you would have a remote backend, you can go and watch that video. But essentially, you have this state file in the cloud so that multiple people can interact with it without having to pass it to each other. But it's within Azure, right? And you'd think that because you're in ADO, you could just automatically go to Azure, get it, and bring it back, right? But that's not the case. Azure and ADO are completely different services. And when you have different services within ADO, you create what's called a service connection. So between this ADO and this Azure, here you have this service connection. So we'll go and set that up. It's really simple. You can do the same thing if you're using, say, a private GitHub repo. You can just automatically use the like passive authentication, but you can set up service connections for things like that too. If you had to go somewhere else to find something, say you in AWS, you needed some keys, so you had some keys in your key vault, you could create a service connection to go there and bring it back for the pipeline, or to GitHub, or whatever it may be. So that's what a service connection is, and we'll set one of those up in a moment. So we run that Terraform init, which you can see here, that's the command. Working directory is just Terraform, so that's fine. That will just set up the back end, make sure that we've initialized Terraform. Next thing is we run a validate, which just checks your code against the configuration that it would expect to make sure that it's valid. The next one is it runs a plan, so just showing you what it should look like. And then finally, it runs an apply, and here we add the command options of auto approve. So that we don't have to interact with this, we can just run this pipeline. We'll just commit to main, and it will just automatically update our infrastructure in the cloud through this pipeline. So if we save this, let's go and make the service connection, and then we have to set up the agent to run the pipeline. So first, if we go to project, have I made changes? We'll just leave. So I shouldn't have. So project settings, and then if we come down to service connections on the pipelines, you can see here that it's already automatically done my GitHub. That's because I logged in. You see it authorizes to GitHub. So let's create a new service connection. And this time we're going to go Azure Resource Manager, because that's Azure RM that we're using for Terraform. Click Next, click Next. Now the scope level here, you can have it for whatever you want. For us, we're going to have a subscription level. So let's just sign in here as ourselves. So this is your Azure portal. Let's send a notification. My webcam is my phone, so you see me in a second. Right, and there we go, we've logged in. We're going to do it at the subscription level, so just give it everything to the subscription. You can do resource group if you want, but because we are deploying resources and making resource groups, it doesn't make sense to do that, unless you're going to hold those resource groups in resource groups or something. I don't know. Let's just go with subscription. And then we'll create a name, so service connection name, we'll call this Azure RM. Is that what we've named it here? Let's check. Basic Azure RM, cool, so then we won't have to change it. We can just grant access permission to all pipelines within the project. There we go. We'll set up that connection, and it shouldn't take long. There we go. If we back out, Azure RM service connection here, and there we go. So the final piece of the puzzle here is agent pools. Now if we go into default, you can see here there's jobs, agents, details, security, players checked, analytics, blah blah blah. So let's go to agents, because we need to create an agent, and then we write new agent. Not right click, and here you're wanting to download this, and this will download your local agent. Shouldn't take long. Whilst that's running, to create and run the agent, you follow the steps here, and that is literally it. So we're going to open up PowerShell, run it as admin, yes. And then here, you just want to copy this. So if we just copy it a bit at a time, so copy that, make directory piece. So from here, you're wanting to change directory, CD, go down 2 levels. So dot dot means move back. So you'll be going from there to C. So you're moving down 2 levels. Then here you want to make a directory called agent and change directory to that. You can see here that's not going to work for me because I already have one from when I tested this. Let's go and delete it because we're not using it right now. I actually see it gets pretty chunky. Oh wait, how's it connected? I'll have it open here. Spoilers, shut your eyes. Try again. There we go. Right, so let's run that command again. And there we go, it's made it and moved into it. Now the next thing is we'll just copy and paste this, where essentially it's just unzipping that file from downloads and putting it into the agent here, this directory. Oh wait, I'm in the agent directory. It's made me an extra one by accident. So anyway, let's copy this and paste it in. Press enter. And we can see here it creates that agent folder. This I can delete. And it then starts to move this stuff in. So the configuration, run command, externals, and then the bin. Which my entire life I always thought meant like stuff for the bin. Didn't realise it was binaries. Anyway, then to configure the agent, you're just running the config command, and to run it, the run command. So I'll show you how to do that now. So here, if we run /config / and then press tab, and it will automatically go to, it'll try and fill in the rest. So like if you have con, tab fills it in, and it just automatically will flip that. And then this opens up. So server URL, you're wanting to add in your organization. So organization URL, which is this part here, that's organization, that's the project. So we'll copy that, I'll paste that in here, press enter. Now authentication type, we're going to press enter for PAT. Now a PAT token is often referred to as, or it should be a PA token, is a personal access token. So if we come back here, up the top right you have this user settings. You see personal access tokens. If we click on this, we can then create a new token that we can use to access this organization. So click new token. See, it's this organization, 30 days. We honestly could do less, but that's fine. And we want to just give it full access. And we'll name it Tech Pipeline Tut Intech, sorry. Click create, and here we go. It will create this token now. So if we click copy, that will then, when we click close, it will be away forever. So keep it open. We've copied it. Now here, if we paste it in, we won't be able to see it because it's super secure. Can't see it so much, it's not working. There we go. Click enter, press enter, and there we go. We can close that down, and it's now got this token that it uses to access ADO. So pool, we'll just press enter, and that will go to default, which is what we're after. The name, we'll just let it be this, which is auto detected as the name of the computer, and then it just scans for tool stuff, blah blah blah. Now whilst it's, oh well, there we go, work folder. A work folder is where it keeps all its stuff. So when it's running your packages, downloading them and stuff, it has this work folder for that. Just press enter, let it do its own one. Run agent as a service, we don't want it to run as a service. And then no, we don't want it to run as startup, we want to manually make it run. So from here, that has been configured. If we go back to Azure DevOps, click top left, and then we'll make sure we're in the correct org. Click on our project, click on project settings, and then agent pools, and then we'll go to default, and we'll go to agents, and we can see now that that one is in here, but he's offline. That's because it's been configured, but we haven't run the run command. So if we ls here, we can list what's in it. And you can see that we have that config command, we also have this run command. So if we do ./run, press enter, it will now run, and you'll see this will flip to online when it connects to the server. You see listen for jobs, online. So we now have that agent which is running on our own machine, so it's got its own little area in our machine where it does the stuff for the pipeline. He's configured, and if you recall from our actual pipeline itself, it's configured to run in that agent. So if we go here and let's just click run pipeline, it should run smoothly, but I had to change the basic code so we don't know for sure, but let's just click run. And then the good thing, and the thing that's cool about pipelines, is we can now see what's happening. So jobs, there's a Terraform in it, plan and apply. If we click on the first one, you can see this pipeline needs permission. This will always happen on your first run of a new pipeline, and you want to permit it such that it can use that pool. And then it will pend or it will queue, but then it will start running. If we refresh, let's see. There we go. Yeah, position in the queue number 2. On this run now, you can see the job, you can see all the stuff that's happening or not happening. Backend, blah blah blah. Please run Terraform in it. Yeah, don't know why it didn't run in it first. That was weird. Let's go back and just run it again. Click cancel. And then up the top here, pipelines. This is the pipeline. Let's just click on that. We can see it here. We can click dot, and then you can cancel it, delete it, retain it. But we want to click back into it, and then we'll just run new. Click run. So I know what's happened here. Good learning curve for me and you. So If we go back to the code, so let's just leave that because it'll just, let's cancel it out. And there's a good point here, you can see the runs. This is the various runs, you can see who's triggered it, when they done it, which branch it was from, or which version of the Git history. Now if we go to pipelines on the left, we'll click on this one, and you can edit it from here, so top right, edit. Authorises it at GitHub, blah blah blah, opens it up. So what's happening right now is that each of these jobs is trying to run in parallel because they're jobs. The problem with these jobs running on parallel when they're not dependent on one another is what you had just seen, where plan is running before init. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the steps in job for the plan and the steps in job for the apply, and just leave them as tasks. Now up top right, let's validate and save. Commit directly to the main. That's fine for me for this. I'm not going to tell me off for it. And it'll automatically now, from this here, trigger that. So we've got pipelines. See that it's running. Let's click on that. It only has one stage called initialization, and then we can follow it through here. It's initializing the job onto the agent, checking out our repo. Now it's installing Terraform, which can take a few seconds, but every other time it will take like a one because we already have it. Then Terraform task v4 is running, which is initializing the backend. You can see that there's working fine. Blah blah blah. And now here you see it's refreshing the state because I've already built this or deployed it or allocated the resources, so they already exist, so there's no infrastructure changes to be made, no changes, but that's the plan. Then this would be the apply. You can see it here, so this is the task. It's running this task, which is that Terraform v4 at 4, and then it's running that command apply, and then this additional flag auto approve, and there's nothing to change, so it just automatically goes through and everything's good. And then post job, it's saying yep, everything's all good. So now if we back out here, you can see that it's green, everything's green, it's all looking good. Tells you success, 52 seconds, there are no artifacts, don't have any tests or anything. It was done just now, took that long. Refresh it, see if it tells you. Nah, it's not going to change the time. And it just tells you all the other stuff here. And so that's it. That's how simple it is to make and run a basic pipeline. So now if we go and make changes, it'll automatically reflect here. So let's open up Visual Studio just for the sake of it, and we'll do a git pull to make sure that I've pulled through the changes that have been made here in this basic, which I believe they have. So now let's go to the Terraform code itself. We have main, blah blah blah. That looks good. Let's just make, what will we make? Let's make a new resource group, because that's nice, simple. Just that will just take a second, and we'll name it -rg2. And then we'll click save. Get add Terraform main, and then commit it. We'll just call that testing the pipeline, and then we'll push it up. Then once that merges in, come back to here, let's refresh, and it will have triggered that pipeline, as you can see. Now let's click on it, and within this one stage you can see it will just run through all this stuff again, but this time it should automatically deploy the resource. Oh no, what's happened here? RG was already declared main 37. Oh, I didn't name the resource correctly. Rookie error. Let's just do that all again. There we go. And that's fine. Now we're back in this pipeline. So you can see how powerful this is for having a record of what's actually happened right here. B, it automates it as well. So like you don't have to run your Terraform in it and blah blah blah. Every time you just commit it and that's it, done. Now The one thing is you don't want it to automatically apply, do you? No. Second thing is you don't want everything to just be task v4. You want initialization, then you want plan and apply or deploy, whatever you want it to be. And thirdly is this is like a dev environment. If you were to really do this for a company, you want to do a dev, a test and a prod. That's at least the three you would normally do. Done. That's it. So now that other resource group has been created in the cloud. Ta-da! It is now Intech Snail RG2. Now, that's the basic pipeline. However, don't go just yet. One other pipeline which is always handy to have, we'll just create it the same way, is a destroy pipeline. So we'll just do the same thing. Existing main and the path we want destroy, because that's a init, plan, apply. But now what if you want to destroy stuff? So let's do this and we'll delete the trigger because we don't want this to run every time. We want it just to be manual. And if we do a save and run it. Nah, I'll just save it. You know what it does. I don't want to destroy my resources. Set up, destroy. There we go. And so this just does the same stuff, but it destroys it. It will be in the repo as well, so you can go have a look at that. Welcome to Intech. My name's Luke, and this is episode 2, and we're developing a production-ready pipeline in ADO. In episode 1, we created a nice basic pipeline, as well as a destroy pipeline, and we've done an overview of ADO, what pipelines are, installing a local agent, etc. So if you need to set everything up and you don't really know anything about ADO and pipelines specifically, go check that out. It will be linked in the description. It's kind of a prerequisite for this. The prerequisite is at least you have to set up a remote backend. Again, description has the GitHub for this, which you can use to just run it. Or if you want an in-depth of why you'd use it, how to make it, check out that video in the description as well. So, previously on this, we set up this. Oh my god, I'm flicking about like no one's business. So, previously, we set up that basic pipeline. Now, if you recall from our drawing here, the next step in this pipeline creation is in managing the state through the stages. So, let me show you. We'll go back here, back into pipelines. If we click on this pipeline, you can edit it to edit the file. But if we click on these 3 dots, we can go to settings and we can actually choose a different YAML file. So for this one, we're going to go to this manual validation. No, sorry, lock file artifact. Now if we click save, this pipeline will now automatically change to using that lock file one. So if we click edit, it will open up as lock file, which is what we're after. So same as before, it's on main, that's fine, choosing the default pool, has some variables, that's all good. But the difference here you'll see is that there are multiple stages. Now, the way that we manage multiple stages here is by using this artifact. To show you, before we explain what it is, we'll show you what happens if you don't have this artifact. So let me remove that part, and we'll remove this downloading part. And then let's just remove this one as well. And then we'll validate and save. And then this commit will cause the pipeline to run. And if we open this up in a new, so let's just duplicate this out actually. And then we'll click on pipelines. You can see this is now running. There are 2, because I've left my destroy one on. Dun dun dun. Whoops, let's cancel that. For reference, if you done the same, don't worry, you can always run your first pipeline again. That's the magic. But secondly, if we go here to edit pipeline, and this is the destroy one, top right, settings, let's just disable it. And there we go, that pipeline will not run, which is good. So anyway, back to pipelines, we can see that this one's running. Let's see, stage 1 ran successfully, the init, as it would. But now the plan fails. Why? Wait, you'll see when it loads. We'll refresh it. So we can see the backend initialization is required. Please run Terraform in it. But I did. Well, it's because the existing state isn't seen by plan because it was within this specific stage, so plan can't see it. So to fix that, what we do is we add these steps to create and publish, or to publish and download an artifact. So as I've spoken about before, artifacts here are byproducts of your pipeline. Artifacts here is its own thing. We're not using artifacts as a service per se, we're using it within pipelines. So this publish artifact here is publishing it only so that it can be then used within this same pipeline again. So we can publish it here, the target path and the artifact name. So we're publishing the Terraform directory within our agent and we're calling it Terraform state, and that's an initialization. And plan to pull it in, we then download this artifact. As you can see, it's a task again. So it's like from here, you would find, if you do artifact, you can see download artifacts for file share, download build artifacts, download the package, blah blah blah, right? All this different stuff. So it uses that to download it, and it downloads it into Terraform on the agent. So now they have access to it, and then again they push it up here, and then we download it again in the next stage, which is the apply. So let's validate and save, and this will commit, and thus it will automatically run. So let's go and see. Now it's running. Nice handy thing as well is always have your pipeline that you're editing in one tab and then the runs in the other. So you can see now, and as of the last one, that it shows you the different stages. So if we look at the basic, everything's in this Terraform in it. It's just called initialization. Everything says v4. So what passed, what didn't, I'd have to go and actually see. And even still, sometimes it doesn't give that much of an output, as you can see. So if we go back here, click on this stage, you can now see there are multiple stages: initialization, plan, and apply, which all look good. If we click on the first one, you can then see initialization, plan, apply, and this little thing here toggles the drop down and it does all the stuff. And now you can see it's publishing this pipeline artifact. Then after that, we'll go into plan, and the first thing it will do is download the artifact. So we'll just give it a second until it finishes doing its stuff, and then we can have a look. Because what you also need to remember here is that you're handling the entire Terraform directory. That's why it can take so long, that's why it's so big, because you can be using multiple providers, multiple packages, and you want to pass that through so that you can continue to use it. Because that's what init does essentially. Go to plan. Sometimes this kind of thing happens and you can't see much. If we refresh it, you see it will start working. But whilst that's starting to work, let's look at this, and you can see, you can actually see a history of what's been working on the agent. Excuse me. We have this job Terraform init completed with results succeeded, and now it's running this job Terraform plan, which is this here, tells you the time and the date. You can just leave this running, and when you're done, you can just cancel out, use Control C, I think it is, or Control D. That will bring you out of it, exit, and then if you need it again, you can just run. So anyway, let's come back to here. The drop down has appeared. I have this initialized job, which is good. There we go, it's setting up the agent, blah blah blah. Checks out the repo, downloads the pipeline artifact. So now it downloads that Terraform directory. And then now, there's no red. It actually runs this Terraform task now, as you can see. And then post job, blah blah blah, finalizes it. And then on to the apply. Let's refresh. So at the plan at the end, you can see blah blah blah. Now it checks out this, gets the pipeline artifact, runs a Terraform task, but again, there's nothing to change because we haven't made any changes. So we'll just run through good as normal. That's how to leverage artifacts to move information between stages within ADO. Welcome to Intech, my name's Luke, and today is episode 3 of our 4-part series to go from knowing nothing about ADO to creating a production ready pipeline. for Terraform code specifically. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about manual validations. So this here in the pipeline. If you don't know what this drawing is, don't know much about ADO, you can go and watch the first video where we create the basic pipeline. I tell you what a pipeline is, how to download the local agent, blah blah blah. In the previous episode, we set up stages, and for this we've used artifacts to move the Terraform init directory stuff from here to the next one, from there to the next one, right? Using artifacts. Today we're going to be looking at the manual validation before the apply stage. So this here is running automatically. We want to come in here and intervene and say, hold on, let's check it out first. So if we go back to our pipelines, now here up top right, let's click on settings and we can change the file. For us this time we're going to go to manual validation. We'll click on save. And then that will change this file. There we go. So we're using a different file now for this pipeline. So the file has changed to this manual validation file, which is the new pipeline file we're going to use for this specific pipeline. Now, most things here are the same, except one small change. The trigger, pool, variables, stages, they're all the same, and the artifact. The difference now is before our Terraform apply, we have this chunk of code here. Now what this does is it waits for validation for 1 day. When this job arises, it notifies this user and says, please validate the build config and resume. And if it times out, it then automatically rejects this stage. Now, to ensure this or to enforce it, you have to have a depends on wait for validation here, because that's depends on wait for validation, which is the name of that job. So this job depends on that one. Otherwise, they run concurrently, which I actually found when testing for this, when the apply run before this. So don't forget that. So if we validate and run this, validate and save, it'll commit directly to main, and that's fine, because that would then trigger this pipeline to automatically run. So come back out here into the pipeline. You can see it's automatically begun. Let's click in here. And you can see that there's this new stage, wait for external validation. And we'll just leave this for a minute and let it run through its stuff, and we'll come back and it hopefully will send us an email. Right, so that is plan just finished. So it's moved on to waiting for external validation. One manual validation needs your review before this can continue. So here we have this review button. If I click on that, it will say reject or resume. You can have a comment. So looks good, no changes. Or looks good, no changes. Then we can resume, and then that will automatically move on to the apply. You can see my emails have just went up by 1, and that's because we have this stage applies pending on manual validation. And if I click review manual validation, I could then go and do it here, but I've already did that. And then the pipeline just runs as normal. And so that's how to implement or enforce the waiting for an external validation. And this is something that you would want if you're going to run something like an apply and you want someone to check it, or you want to check it before it automatically goes through. So this is the final part of the basic pipeline. The next step we're going to do is get this pipeline that we have, which is the, let's draw it better. We have the stages, so the init, the plan, we have a manual validation here, and then we have the apply, and we have that with this artifact file that keeps getting referenced. Now this is essentially just a dev environment, right? Because we're just playing around. Now if you were in the real world, you're going to want this to have a dev environment to kind of play around, if you will, for want of a better phrase. You would want this test environment, and you would want this prod environment. Now, to do this, we would actually want one pipeline to handle all of that, such that then we can have these multiple environments so that users can access this one, people can test this one, you can experiment, I suppose, for want of a better term, in this one. Welcome to the 4th and final episode of our Azure DevOps pipeline, where we are creating a basic pipeline and we're bringing it all the way through to production. If you don't know much about ADO, go and watch the first episode. If you want to know more about pipelines, agents, how we've set everything up, go watch that. But essentially what we have is we have this Terraform code that we want to run through a pipeline. Now the pipeline, we want it to run this init and validate. We want it to plan it out. We want a manual validation, and then we want an apply stage. And we have created this before. Now our next step is to create this across 3 environments, a dev, a test and a prod, and have one single pipeline that does all this stuff. Now you can see here that there's going to be code repetition, but there doesn't have to be, because always remember, do not repeat yourself, or don't repeat yourself, try. So here to fix that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a template YAML of what we need for here, and we're going to call that template 3 times so that we don't have code duplication where we can avoid it. So without further ado, let's get into the code. So if we open up here, this is back to our pipelines. We'll click settings, and we're going to change our file path to this complete pipeline YAML. And we'll click save, and you can see just how streamlined this can get. So when this pops up, you see that it's actually not very long for a full pipeline. Now that's because we have the trigger, same as normal main, same pool as normal, variables, and we've extrapolated out the approval email. So these are the variables that are going to be used within the stages. And within the stages, we have a dev stage, we have a test stage, and we have a prod stage. Now within each of these, you can see that we're actually leveraging a Terraform template YAML, and we're going to pass in these parameters, which are the environment name, the backend name, which is dev blah 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 test blah 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 prod, and then the backend key, the Azure service connection, and their approval email, because these could change possibly. And so this here, when we run it, we'll run this from the Terraform template YAML. So let's open that up and have a look. So if we open this up, we see the Terraform template YAML. It's in the same directory, and we first set the parameters. So I maybe have to pull you over here so you can see me and the code. So we have the parameters, environment name, blah blah blah, all looking good. And to use parameters within this template, you just do it in this means, which is dollar curly braces, or chicken lips as some people say. Parameters, no, I don't like that one, but parameters dot and then whatever it's going to be. So this here, and they're all just of type string. So display name for the job is initialize, and then this will be dev test or prod. And then for everyone, it's just doing the same thing as normal, which is the initialization, the plan, waiting for validation, and then the apply. The only difference here is that we use these parameters for things which could change. Everything which could be the same is going to stay the same, but anything which could change, which is essentially just the backend and the name, will change here. So ensure before you've run this that you've run the TF backends, because you want all of the backends to have been run. But anyway, if we go back to this now, you can see how clean that this code actually looks here. We're just going to click run, and then run, and it will automatically start running through here. Right, so this here, this authorization issue is actually because the backend is wrong. So the Azure service connection, I'm using intech. That was because that's what I used in the one where I practiced. But in here, if we go to project settings, then we go to service connections, you can see we're actually using Azure RM. So let's open up the pipeline again. Got pipelines here. Open up the field one. Want to click edit. And then when that authorizes with GitHub and pulls through, we're going to update that service connection to be Azure RM. Then we'll validate and save. Save. And then that will automatically run the pipeline. Just go here, refresh, open that up. Right, so now it's going to say this pipeline needs permission to access a resource so it's going to run blah blah blah. This is just because it's the first time that it's run, so we'll just permit that. And then we'll let it run through the whole thing. So it does our dev plan, dev initialize, and dev apply with an external validation between each. So we've come to the pipelines here and click on environments. We can see that these 3 environments have been detected. Now dev has now just finished running, so test is now next. We'll refresh this, let's see. Yeah, it's not there yet, but it'll be getting there in a minute. So maybe before it gets there, let's click on test, and then we can see if there's approvals and checks. If we click there, we can then click this plus icon and do a approvals check. Click next. And here we can add in the user or group. So I'm just going to add myself, then click create. And now this person must approve before anything gets run in that environment. So if we open this back up and refresh, let's see, I might have just missed it. No, it needs permission first, so let's permit it since it's our first run. And there we go. So now this is dependent on approval before it can even start this environment part of the pipeline, which is good because now you can see from here dev is done, all good, but now we're here, we could just go and reject it now, or we could approve, but in this case we'll just approve it and it'll automatically go there. So to talk you through a little bit more of what we've done, we'll do the same for prod. So if we click on the prod environment, 3 dots, no, sorry, not 3 dots because it's been moved. Approvals and checks. And then click the plus. And then here you have a variety of things you can have pertaining to this environment. But for us, what we're interested in is this approvals. Click next. And then you can add a user or a group. So this is where it's kind of leveraging the Active Directory. We'll just have myself, there's no users or groups. But if this was a company, you could maybe say, oh, we have a couple of leads, or we have a group, which is the lead engineers group, and only they can approve to prod, something like that. Click create, and then the same thing will happen again for that one. So if we come back here, once this is all done, the exact same thing will come up again for prod, and then we can deploy it there. And the reason this is all working as expected is because also, if we go back to the code, see if it works this time, yes. So if we go back to the code in the complete pipeline, you can see for each one it has its own backend, so it is able to deploy all of its resources within its own Terraform state. And so what it means now is that, for instance, this could deploy to test, and then we could just leave it there and we could test it, and then if it works we could then approve it onto the next stage. Or say you only want to do something for dev, when it gets to that test you could just reject it, or you could cancel it, whatever it may be. And that's how simple it is to create a nice clean production style pipeline. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have anything that you want to ask, comments, questions, queries, let me know in the comments below. Any other tutorials that you're after, let me know. I am a consultant cloud engineer by trade, so this is all my kind of stuff. Misha's coming to say goodbye as well. So anyway, have a good one, hope it helps. Take care.